Now, onto the awards part of this video. My first award goes to the best lead character of the year. To be clear, lead doesn't just mean your central protagonist, but rather the main characters. That can be plural or singular depending on the anime. Most anime have two, some have one, it really depends, and this award can be given to either of them. Winter brought us Mavis Vermilion from Fairy Tail Zero and proved that Hiro Mashima actually can write a good protagonist. Then we had Satoru from Erased, and Ruby from Ruby, before we transitioned from winter to spring with Koro-sensei from Assassination Classroom. Spring also gave us Mumei from the Kabanari of the Iron Fortress, and Deku from My Hero Academia, and then summer brought the return of some of anime's great protagonists, like Alan Walker from d.gray-man, and Prince Arslan from The Heroic Legend of Arslan, as well as adding some great new ones, with Angela Laguzza from 91 Days, and Velvet Crow from Tales of Zestiria the X. And fall brought us the return of Dazai Osamu from Bungo Stray Dogs. What can I say about Dazai that I didn't already say in my fall anime review? Oh my god, I freaking love this character. He is 2 parts sass, 5 parts suicidal mania, and 12 parts mafia cold black blood. He is just ridiculously fun to watch, and part of what's so fun is that 1 minute he's a layabout detective, relaxing and being absolutely worthless, and the next he's one of the leaders of the mafia. And even though he's no longer a mafia boss by the time the series comes around, you can see that he is far from reformed. His personality is still there, and he has no bones about breaking every moral law in the books to get what he wants. The fact that what he wants is now happens to be on the quote-unquote good side of things is just a minor technicality. He's just really fun and entertaining to watch, especially because I've gotten so tired of the moral goody two-shoes routine coming from our protagonists. The fact that they were able to take an ex-mafia member and give him this sort of role without having to have him reform is what makes Dazai entertaining and what makes the world just a little more beautiful. Right, Oda? My most annoying character of the year award goes to Natsuki Subaru from ReZero. Seriously, most of the time I enjoy watching this guy bite the dust. My next award plunges into the spoilery awards category that I mentioned earlier. And what could possibly be more spoilery than my most tragic deaths of the year? Well, there were a lot of sad deaths this year. Magical Girl Raising Project brought us multiple tragedies, as did 91 Days. And then of course there were some other individual deaths, like Bungo Stray Dogs' Odasaka, d.gray-man's Alma Karma, and Koro-sensei from Assassination Classroom that were all quite the heart-wrenchers. But I guess if I had to pick one, the most tragic death of the year would probably go to the most shocking one, and that is Pyrrhanikos from Ruby. I've got a lot of feelings about this death, and a lot to say about it, but I already talked about it at length in my top 10 anime deaths video, so if you want to hear more about it from me, I'll just send you there. Shameless plug. The link's in the description. Anyway, moving on. And getting back to those character awards, my next award goes to my best major character. To be clear, this character isn't a main character or a protagonist, but is still an incredibly important character in the show. They get a large amount of screen time, a large amount of development, and a large amount of plot devoted to them. Narrowing this category down to just a handful of finalists was pretty difficult, since almost all of the good anime I watched this year had a solid group of major characters. But after a good amount of agonizing, here they are. Winter saw the return of Sophie Sturluson in Dorora X2 Ketsu, and Karma from Assassination Classroom, as well as the addition of Arthur from Divine Gate. Summer was rife with good characters, including Narcissus from The Heroic Legend of Arslan, Kanda from d.gray-man, and Lawless, also known as Hyde, from Servamp. Winter brought us Ortfine von Elstadt from Izetta the Last Witch, and of course there was the Feels, that was Odasaka Nosuke from Bungo Stray Dogs. And Winter also brought us Weiss Schnee. Rather appropriate that a character based on Snow White came from the Winter. Well, anyway, obviously Weiss didn't actually come from the Winter, but rather from the 4th volume of Ruby. Yes, she was in the 3rd and got some good development there, but I really wanted to talk about Weiss's development this season. God, to think I started out not liking this character. Weiss has come such a long way from the snobby heiress who was refusing to work with Ruby back in Volume 1. Her development really crystallized this season. Ruby decided to spend the season really building up its world and its cast, and developing them each on their own as opposed to playing off of Ruby. And Weiss was the one who got the greatest amount of development, at least as far as I'm concerned. I really especially wanted to talk about that scene where her family's holding that fundraiser, and she completely freaks out at how much people aren't taking this seriously. And it's at that moment that I really started to realize how much all of the survivors of the Battle of Beacon really must be suffering. And the fact that Weiss appears to have some traces of PTSD from it really feels realistic and builds up exactly what the characters are going through. But Weiss doesn't just sit back and suffers. She charges forward and breaks away from her father, and honestly, she's just really well written. When it came to animation quality, there were 3 anime that really stood out this year, and they were Mob Psycho 100, Tales of Zestiria the X, and Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress. All 3 were superb in their own way. Between Zestiria's beautiful landscapes, Kabaneri's gorgeous action sequences, and the sort of intricacy and detail that was seen in Mob Psycho. Choosing a winner here was incredibly difficult, and ask me again tomorrow and I may have a different answer for you. But for today, the winner is Tales of Zestiria the X. Damn it, Ufotable's done it again. I mean, just God. While it lacks some of the polish that Ufotable brought to the Fate series, the slightly roughening of the edges actually works in this universe's favor. The visuals alone are enough to create a vast and alien world that just keeps me on the edge of my seat, always wanting to know what's going on and what the world holds, even when the plot and characters didn't do that for me. And moving on to my next Characters Award. This award goes to secondary characters. This award goes to characters who are not main cast, but nevertheless got a large amount of screen time, in acknowledgement of studios really fleshing out their characters. As for the spots of the honorable mentions, let's start with a character who did not lose this time, and that was Loser from Dimension W. Then the winter also gave us Kayano from Assassination Classroom and Verona from Durara X2 Ketsu. Spring brought us Rem from ReZero and Ayame from Kabaneri of the Iron Fortress, as well as Chuya from Bungo Stray Dogs. Summer gave us the return of Etoile from The Heroic Legend of Arslan, and the anime premiere of Wisely from d.gray-man. Fall brought us a good deal of entertainment in the form of Ruby's Uncle Crow, while also bringing us Top Speed from Magical Girl Raising Project. There was, however, at least for me, a clear winner, and that was Sachiko Fujinama, also known as Satoru's mother from Erased. Satoru's mother has to be one of the best parent characters I've seen in anime. Of course, she's miles ahead of the classic bad anime parent, but she's even above some of the good ones. Satoru's mother is more than just a parent. She has a real personality, a 3-dimensional one too. She's developed, she's interesting, she's quick-witted, smart, clever, but she also really genuinely cares about her son. She's a really good parent, but she also doesn't feel the need to stay on the moral high ground if it means protecting children. She also trusts Satoru implicitly, and it's easy to see that any strength he has as a person really comes from the way she raised him. She's a great character and well worth this award. Next up is my Studio of the Year award. Now this is a complete no-brainer because there's one studio that once again has stood out above the others, and that is Studio Bones, with 3 great shows in Mob Psycho 100, Bungo Stray Dogs, and My Hero Academia, all coming out this year. There was just no competition. My next character award goes to my best minor character. Minor characters, to put it plainly, are characters who didn't need development or 3-dimensionality or anything really. The series could have gone on just fine without putting them in, but the authors and the animators took the time and the effort to make them real characters instead of just paper cutouts in the background, which is something I really appreciate. With that said, my honorable mentions are Johnny from d.gray-man Hallow, Lilik from Servamp, Miel and Yunel from Magical Girl Raising Project, and Taeyang Xiaolong from Ruby. And this award goes to Higuchi from Bungo Stray Dogs. Higuchi really is a character who did not need to exist. She's one of Octagawa's underlings in the Port Mafia. That's it. Nothing else. She has no other relevance. But far from just making her one of the cardboard cutouts in the background, Higuchi actually gets screen time and development. In fact, far from just being a background character, she even gets half an episode narrated from her point of view, which is just extraordinary considering that she's not main cast in any way. I really enjoyed seeing things from her point of view, as they helped to build out and develop the Port Mafia as a whole, giving it three-dimensionality and making them, the Port Mafia members I should say, less like villains and more just like normal characters. Higuchi herself is a really likable character too, and I'm glad we got the chance to get to know her. My next award goes to my top fight scene of the year. There are two things I look for in an action sequence. One is good solid action animation and choreography. The other is some sort of emotional stake, some tension or drama, some reason you want to see the character achieve their goal, or some stakes for what'll happen if they fail. Essentially, I need a reason to care. Flashy animation alone isn't enough, and while there were several anime that had just one, I wanted to honor the anime that had both. There was Rem vs. Subaru from ReZero, Narcissus vs. Shagad from The Heroic Legend of Arslan, Class 1A vs. The League of Villains from My Hero Academia, Izaya vs. Shizuo from Durarara, Pyrrha vs. Cinder from Ruby, Double Black vs. The Guild from Bungo Stray Dogs, Mume vs. the Carbine from Kabanari of the Iron Fortress, and Nagisa vs. Karma from Assassination Classroom. And of course the best fight scene of the year. Beautifully animated and with sky-high emotional stakes, Kanda vs. Alma Karma vs. Alan Walker from d.gray-man Hallow. I mean, the emotional stakes could not be higher. Coming at the end of the Alma Karma arc, with the truth about Alma and Kanda revealed, the emotional tension is beyond high. And then, of course, Alan gets thrown into the mix, and in his attempt to stop the fight, he does the one thing he's sworn all season that he won't do, and allows the 14th to awaken. That is the moment in which Alan truly becomes an enemy of the Black Order. And that's not even the main emotional stakes for the fight. That comes from Alma and Kanda, their past, and moreover, the tragic plot twist about Alma's true identity that is revealed over the course of the fight. All in all, I can think of few fight scenes more exhilarating, or more painful to watch. Bad antagonists are a dime a dozen in anime, and we certainly had plenty of those this year. But I want to talk about the good ones, and by good I mean evil. Last winter brought us a truly terrifying villain in the form of a character who makes things fall apart. It's Cinder Fall. And of course we also had the antagonist of antagonists, that is, Izaya Orihara from Durarara, plus a new antagonist on the scene, Loki from Divine Gate. Summer brought Tsubaki from Servant, while fall brought a whole bunch of screen time and development to a whole bunch of antagonists in Bungo Stray Dogs Port Mafia. Just don't ask me to pick one. I can't. On that vein, I nearly gave this award to one of the Noah from d.gray-man. Which Noah? Road, Tiki, the Earl, Naya? Don't ask me. So I just gave honorables to the whole clan, and instead gave victory to Lord Silvermask, also known as Prince Helmis from the Heroic Legend of Arslan Dust Storm Dance. Helmis started out as a fear factor villain, that is to say, a villain whose main appeal is his mystery and the way in which he totally overpowers the main characters. However, over the course of Dust Storm Dance, he goes from this two-dimensional mystery full of anger and burning hatred for his, cousin Arslan, half-brother cousin anyway, spoilers aside, and turns into an actually well-written, creative, and three-dimensional character. We get a whole half episode of his backstory, and you really get a feel for how, much he's suffered and how his vengeance could be justified and how, honestly, the show could totally be told from his perspective and you'd totally end up rooting for him and seeing him as the good guy. He's a character a lot more like, say, Lelouch from Code Geass than, more traditional two-dimensional scheming family members. And he's honestly a character who I can't help but root for now, despite the fact that he is still the same antagonist who tortures and kills good guys without the slightest hesitation, and who wants to rip Arslan limb from limb. He's really a fascinating character, and that's why I love both him and Arslan.